TCI is brought to you by Astrology, a graded stakes-winning juvenile by AP Indy. New to TaylorMade Stallions for 2013.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown alongside Joel Cunningham and a very special guest, Ray Paulick. I'm John Siegel. Well, guys, I wish we were here talking about a potential Triple Crown winner. Unfortunately, again, we're not going to be talking about that. Orb, very disappointing in the Preakness. You know, Ray, historically, we're just so desperate to see this Triple Crown winner, you know, as an industry. It's really kind of funny because, I mean, Orb's got a chance to win 2 legs of the Triple Crown, but he could still potentially be a disappointment.
It's been a while. 1978, I guess, right? I was just a pup then.
I was born that year.
Yeah, okay, no, that's nice. But you know, we really want to see a Triple Crown winner, and every time the Derby winner, moves to the Preakness, you say, okay, this looks like the one that can do it. This year, Orb really did look like the one that could do it. He was in the hands of a trainer who doesn't force horses into the Derby.
Right.
He's got a good pedigree. I think the Malibu Moon part is, I mean, he's the now stallion, I think, in the business. And you've got, a good female family. There's a lot of things. He came in with the Florida Derby win, the Fountain of Youth. He had a lot of things going in his favor. Gets to the Preakness. Problem is, you got to run the race. He ran the race. He ran a dull race, whether it was the circumstances of Gary Stevens putting everybody else to sleep on the pace, or on the inside, or maybe he just didn't fire, who knows. Didn't win the race. It's like a lot of other sports. Tiger Woods can dominate golf, but you still gotta go out and play 18 holes and beat the other guys that are trying to beat him. Okay,
so I guess my question is it time to panic? I mean, you're always going to hear these people, oh, we got to change the races, we got to change the time in between the races. You can't go a mile and a half anymore. I mean, is it time to panic?
I mean, they're concerns. I do think at a mile and a half, again, we're not breeding thoroughbreds to stay that far in the dirt anymore. I really believe that. We've infused so much speed into the pedigrees over the last, several decades, and then I think it reflects in the dosage numbers, and you can just look at the sires of these horses and really see those brilliance, those brilliance influences in terms of horses just not being able to handle the marathon distances. So I think there's some validity in that Belmont, and we've seen the Belmont be the race that stymied most of the Triple Crown tries. I mean, let's be honest here. And I do agree with Ray. It takes a great horse to do it. I think there's no question about that. But and then I would also say the time in between races is a concern. I know it's something you're for, potentially moving more space in between each race. I think that might have been what got Orb. I mean, you mentioned Gary Stevens, Oxbow put him to sleep on the front end, but Orb was still fourth. I mean, it wasn't like he was a fast closing second in the race.
Yeah, I'd like to see it go first Saturday in May, first Saturday in June, first Saturday in July for the Triple Crown, but this industry is so resistant to change. That's not going to happen anytime soon. I think that Orb is the kind of horse that he's back at Belmont Park in his home barn. Reminds me of 1989 with Sunday Silence and Easy Goer, which was a real rivalry. By the way, I'm not sure this is quite up to that yet, the Orb Oxbow rivalry. It doesn't have quite the same ring to it. But he's got coming out of his own barn. He's got 3 weeks to train up to it. I think he's going to be ready, and I think we're going to see a horse win 2/3 of the Triple Crown, just like we've seen so many other times before. But since 1978, nobody's been able to take all 3.
Well, you mentioned, the fact that we see this rivalry between Oxbow and Orb. It's the Derby winner, the Preakness winner.
A rivalry. Right?
Yeah. The interesting thing to me is that in the Belmont, we could potentially see the Derby winner, we could see the second place finisher in the Derby, third place finisher in the Derby, and then the Preakness winner. I mean, it really is a great group of horses that we see coming back in the Belmont. You think pedigree is going to play a huge part here in the mile and a half. Tell me some horses that you think that their pedigree is actually really going to bring them down with their chances.
Well, to me, the dosage index looks at the pedigree, and really through data over the last 30 years has compiled the numbers at a mile and a half distance, a distance that none of these horses have run at before, probably never will run at again. And we've seen all these wacky outcomes in the Belmont Stakes. Horses like Datara winning, Sarava, some of the longest shots on the board, a Ruler on Ice. Horses that maybe never even won a race again in their lives. Even look at the Breeders' Cup Marathon, another dirt race, going a mile and a half, mile and 3/4. You have horses like a Fleet again, longest shot on the board, winning the Breeders' Cup Marathon a couple years ago. So I think there's credence to the fact that, it's not necessarily the best horse that wins this race, but perhaps the horse that can stay out that mile and a half distance. And so to me, the only way you can look at it is through the data and the dosage number. Who has the pedigree to do it? And I think a horse like Code West really moves up. I mean, he has a 1.34 dosage. That is a monster dosage number. He's out of a Belmont winner, Lemon Drop Kid. You know, he's a grinding type horse that can sit in that second flight and just clip off those 12 and change eighths. So I like a horse like Code Weston here, even has a big Tomlinson number. I think Giant Finish, Golden Soul, both those horses check out from a dosage standpoint. And to me, you look at the data, last 10 winners of the Belmont, Ray, had a 3.0 dosage or less. To me, there's hard data that suggests that you have to have stamina influences throughout your pedigree to see out that 12 furlongs. Now, I know some great horses maybe could do it. Smarty Jones certainly was a horse that may have done it if he wasn't hounded. He was a great horse, but most of these horses going for the Triple Crown, I think the race that's held them up is the Belmont, because I really think it's that 1.5 mile distance, particularly coming back on short rest. So you have to have the horses that grade out from a pedigree standpoint. It's all we can really go by. Horses that don't grade out for me is a horse like Freedom Child, a wise guy horse, likes the track, but he has a 4.09 dosage index. Doesn't have a good Tomlinson either, so to me, he's not a horse that's going to be around finishing after 1.5 miles. I would throw him out. Will Take Charge, I think, to throw out as a 3.33 dosage. Also doesn't have a good Tomlinson. Orb is questionable. I know you like him, Ray, but he has a 3.21 dosage index. I know you're not big into the numbers, but his pedigree.
Smosage. You know, I think more important than dosage is the jockeys. If you go back and look at some of the Triple Crown bids that have been foiled, and I know we don't have one this year, but look at Ronnie Franklin in the Belmont when he moved too soon. Look at Kent DeSormo on Real Quiet. Look at Stuart Elliott on Smarty Jones. Those, to me, the jockeys were more important than any numbers off a dosage.
Fair
profile.
enough.
You know, that's just my opinion. You know, what do they say? Figures lie and liars figure.
Well, it is interesting to look at the data. I mean, I do think, like you said, the last 10 winners with the dosage, but there has been some horses that have had a higher dosage that have got it done as well.
Sure,
I mean, maybe the track is playing a little bit off. You know, I think, you know, my question to you guys, Ray, I'll ask you first. Do you think that we're going to have a Derby Belmont winner, or do you think maybe we'll have a Preakness Belmont winner? Or, hey, could we have, you know, a winner, an individual winner of all 3 legs this year?
Well, Oxbow is the kind of horse that if he gets out in the lead again and the other jockeys just say, go ahead, that's fine, we'll catch you up later, it's over, I think, because this horse can gallop on the lead really well. I think 1.5 miles is within his scope. I know Gary Stevens thinks so. But I think there's going to be speed to go with him. I don't think he's going to get the kind of lead that he had in the Preakness. And I think it's going to set up for Orb. I think we're going to have a Derby Belmont winner. And what I really hope for is I like to see Oxbow in the fight to the end, and I like to see these horses go on, race in the Haskell, the Traverse, the Breeders' Cup, and then go on to 4-year-old campaigns, which we haven't seen really with a horse that's going for the Triple Crown or won 2/3 of the Triple Crown. We haven't seen that since Real Quiet back in '98, and then of course Funny Side, who was a gelding, race for several years afterwards. So, you know, Derby Belmont winner is my prediction. And then the hope is we're going to see these horses a lot more later in the year and in 2014 as well.
Joel, I'll ask you the same question. I mean, what do you think? You think we'll see a Preakness Belmont or Derby Belmont?
I do think if we do see one or the other, you're going to have your front runner for 3-year-old champion at this point, unless one just falls apart. If one of them can win 2 classics, I think that's huge. You know, Oxbow reminds me of Painter last year. I think Painter was the best horse in the race in the Belmont. He didn't win because he was a little flat in the stretch, in my opinion, and it was a slowly run race. It didn't get a big speed figure, and he was ground down by Union Rags, a grinding type horse that had a good dosage number. So Oxbow concerns me a little bit in his ability to, again, see out the 1.5 miles, but he does have better dosage and Tomlinson numbers than Orb does. Orb doesn't have bad ones, he just doesn't have good ones, and it would concern me. He's not as bad as Freedom Child. Again, Freedom Child is a complete toss in this race from my perspective. Orb looks like a natural. He gives you that feeling that he's a natural at 1.5 miles, and I thought 1.25 miles is in his scope, but I do question him with that extra 1/4 mile. So to me, I think a horse like Code West, there could be a third or fourth player in here that really could pose an upset chance because they come in fresh, and again, they're going to handle the distance better.
I think it's a long way from an allowance race on Preakness Day to the Belmont Stakes, but we'll see.
Oh, he's a
hey,
fresh
Saraba,
horse. He's a fresh
Datara,
horse.
we've seen it happen.
Yeah,
It'll be
wins.
interesting.
Seen it happen.
Well, thank you guys. Ray, thank you for your time coming on, and thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll give you a complete breakdown of the Belmont.